like to introduce you to our speakers. So we've got Dan Slatter, who is our CEO. He's been leading us through some rather recent challenging times, and he'll be talking about our plans for growth. But to start us off, I'd really like to introduce you to Caroline Ward. Caroline is one of our trustees. She chairs our development committee, and she brings a wealth of experience from the corporate world to guide us through our new initiatives. So Caroline's been volunteering with us as a trustee for about 5 years.
Yep, I think so.
Over to you, Caroline.
Oh, thank you, Claire, for the introduction. And I'd like to add my welcome to you all. I'm delighted you could join us today. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback. I don't know if somebody's not on mute or whether I'm shouting into my microphone. Apologies. So let me walk you through the first 4 slides and let me share some background to FareShare Sussex and Surrey. The first 10 years, which sounds very much like a sort of boy band album title. But anyway, I'd like to show you some of the quite extraordinary growth we've witnessed with some extraordinary stats to kind of evidence and back that up. So a little bit of background as to how this all started. We're a registered charity set up by Citygate Community Projects way back in 2002. And I know some of my fellow trustees are on the call today. So our board comprises 10 trustees, and we do the typical sort of trustee stuff, overseeing governance, looking at risk, ensuring good financial management, etc. And really just to clarify as well, FareShare Sussex and Surrey is part of the larger FareShare UK network, which you may be familiar with, which has regional centres dotted around the country. Although FareShare Sussex and Surrey, we're an independent charity focused on local impact. So I really wanted to share our vision for the charity, which we all endorse, we all stand behind, that no good food goes to waste. And our mission is to maximise the social value of surplus food. So let's set the scene at sort of local and regional level. If I could have slide 2, please. So I'm sure you'll agree the headlines on this slide have not changed over the last 10 years, but the numbers have, and I think you'll agree they're fairly shocking. And here at FareShare Sussex and Surrey, we have 2 really key aims. So it's fighting hunger and tackling food waste, and we firmly believe we are part of that solution. So I wanted to dig a little deeper into these stats, and they don't make great reading. So an estimated 12.7 million people are hungry in the UK, 4 million of whom are kids. And we also have an estimated 3 million tonnes of food waste in the UK. But on top of that, sort of layer in the sort of local regional flavour, Sussex and Surrey are known as relatively affluent counties, yet we have 44 areas of severe deprivation in the top 10% of the country. We've also got some of the highest levels of homelessness in the UK. In urban areas of Sussex, for example, unemployment is higher at 5.2% than the UK average of 4.8%. And also Sussex has a range of sort of health issues that seem to be significantly worse than the national average, so such as alcohol and drug use, sexual health and self-harm. So if I can move to the next slide. So let's talk about where it all began. I love this slide. It just shows the amazing growth in the first 10 years. So in 2002, FareShare Sussex was established to distribute food to 15 local organisations with the help of 2 volunteers. And what I love about this, and what's really great, is we still delivered to some of those initial organisations such as Sussex Beacon, First Base and Brighton Unemployment Centre. FareShare Sussex was established to facilitate food redistribution alongside the other projects that Citygate was running, including running a nursery in the city of Brighton. So in summary, before we hit our second decade, we grew to reach 63 organisations with some 128 volunteers delivering over 1 million meals. And in parallel, we increased our funding and the amount of food we received from FareShare UK. So quite staggering figures, I'm sure you'll agree. And then if I can move on to the next slide, please. So in 2020, COVID-19 appeared, which had a huge impact on us. We doubled our food intake from 675 tonnes to 1,538 tonnes. And there are a number of reasons that sit behind that. So hospitality industries had closed down. We had increased support from supermarkets, and the government's focus was on providing charities with food to support folks in need. Our income also increased, and that was thanks to the generosity and goodwill of people throughout the pandemic to support, again, support from government and large amounts of corporate support, which was amazing. With some of our community partners, they kind of paused initially in the uncertainty of the pandemic, but for those who didn't, obviously the demand for their food was greater. So I've given you a really whistle-stop tour of kind of the first 10 years. And the question I'm sure you're asking is so where next? And at this point, I'd like to hand over to Dan Slatter, our wonderful CEO, who will update you on our plans, our future plans, and what happened in this last year. So Dan, if I can hand the baton to you.
Thanks, Caroline. Hello, everyone. Add my welcome to you as well. It's great to have you with us today. So picking up where we're at right now. So here's a snapshot, as you can see on the slide in front of you, in 2022. So our last complete year, 2.4 million meals served through FareShare Sussex and Surrey across the 3 counties that we're operating in. And we worked with 165 different local organisations. Now, those are predominantly charities or community groups that we managed to reach out to. One of the things I love most about what FareShare Sussex and Surrey does, and I'm still within my first year of being with the organisation, so I feel like I can boast, knowing that it's boasting of what's gone and what's in place long before I arrived. But is the impact of volunteers. So not only are we able to create a huge impact with food and working with a large number, but as you can see, in the last year alone, our volunteers donated 22,000 or 22,500 hours of time. And that's how we managed to absolutely maximise the value of what we do and what we deliver out to the charities that we partner with. So our volunteers are right at the core and the backbone of what we do. One of the really important parts of our enterprise and our works is our triple bottom line, which means that we have a great commitment to the environment. We have a great commitment to social transformation and tackling poverty, as well as having security, financial security and stability. Within what we managed to achieve last year that had an impact positively on the environment, we managed to divert a whopping 981 tonnes of food ending up in waste, good to eat food ending up in waste. And part of our commitment to not just using our food to do good, but actually intrinsically through the whole organisation, how can we keep improving our practice, our green credentials beyond our food? And we invested in this last year in 2 new electric vans, one of which you can see there on the screen in front of you. And we're proud within the FareShare network, and it is a family, but in every family there is always a bit of sibling rivalry. And we're proud to boast that last year we had the lowest waste food levels within that network, within the 18 charities that make up the network running 32 centres. We had the lowest food waste rate. So what comes through our doors, what we couldn't get out the doors quickly enough or got wasted, we're really, really thrilled that that was consistently below 2% of all the volume that came through the door last year. And also last year, environmentally, rescuing food, working with the public. We had a huge record donation come through from our winter food drive, working with one of our key partners, Tesco's, nationally as well as regionally, seeing over 20 pallets of food come through that 3-day food drive in the month of December. So that's kind of some insight into the year, the last full year that we've had operationally. So what next? Where are we after? What are we looking at? Where are we going? Well, just to be, as we step into that, to see some of the groups that we work with, 165 across the counties, right the way from Hastings in the east, right the way over to the Bognor Regis in the west, and then up into Surrey. And we work with a diversity. You get a little snapshot here on the screen of some of the groups that we're working with. One of the things I was so impressed with as I arrived in the organisation is the diversity of what we work with. I think it's very easy to assume that FareShare Sussex and Surrey, or FareShare nationally, just can at times be seen as a supplier for food banks, but it's so much more diverse. In my first couple of weeks, I got to jump in a van, and that opened my eyes personally to it, as I was involved in delivering one Thursday morning off to a women's refuge out in Eastbourne, but also into homeless shelters, schools and nurseries, community kitchens, sheltered accommodation, and lots of shared meal initiatives. So a lot of what we do is tackling poverty, but also a large part of what we do is using that and pulling a different lever that sometimes is the same lever, but is around isolation. So there's poverty around social isolation that we're dealing with too. So shared meal initiatives are a crucial part of what we supply food into. So what sort of food do we put out there? Again, there can be a generalized perception. I understand it, that we're just sort of supplying food banks, but you'll see from the slide here, a very large percentage of what we supply out from that comes in and then goes out our doors. Most stock only stays with us for 48 hours before it's out the doors to our community partners, our charitable partners. Most of it is fresh fruit and veg. 42% of that is vegetables, as you can see from the slide here, or just short of. If you're interested in what sort of veg that we're supplying, it is everything and anything, but the biggest volumes are things like potatoes, carrots, tomatoes and cabbages make up a big chunk of that. Then there's mixed products, so products that arrive through our door that are from mixed backgrounds, ambient products, and then dairy and fruit, you can see, making up a huge swathe of what comes in and goes out. So where are we heading? Where does this food come from? How do we get hold of it and how do we get it out the door? Well, we receive food from lots of different places. Obviously, there are donations that come in through individual members of the public. We have PCP, what we call PCP, collection points that happen in supermarkets and retailers around the 3 counties that we operate in. But we work closely with all sorts of suppliers. So a lot of our fresh fruit and veg actually comes from the agricultural sector, from farming, and comes direct through that. We also deal with over-ordered stock through retail or through managing, or sometimes, and recently, a recent example was a whole load of cereal that ended up in our warehouses and then going out the door to our partner charities and community groups through mislabeling. So it wasn't suitable for the particular manufacturer and supplier in that case to put it out into retail, but through some careful collaboration and partnership, we were able to save it from being wasted and redistribute it out to the groups that we work with. But you'll see a real broad section of groups that we're partnering with to take that surplus food that would most simply and easily be wasted, and to keep it in the human food chain and get it doing some really, really good work with charities and community groups across the county. Now, there is some challenge that's there at the moment. As was said at the beginning, we are in a challenging season. You will have noticed from the news that the food industry is struggling at the minute. And I know they're not unique in that, but the food industry is struggling. In stock availability is at times running really challengingly low. The demand for our food is unfortunately being outstripped by the need that's there and the availability of what we can get hold of. As an example, in July in 2022, we actually received 50% less food than we received in July in 2021. Just a bit of an eye-opening insight into some of the challenges that we're facing. The cost of living crisis has increased requests from new organisations wanting to partner with us. And that demand is not something that we can currently keep up with. We are working incredibly hard to grow the incoming food into the organisation so we can get more food out the door. And that is happening, but unfortunately the demand is running higher. We're also facing the challenging scenarios that I'm sure all of us are facing on a personal level or within our commercial partners that are on this call, as well as charitable partners that are on the call too, of our organisational costs are increasing. We're seeing our utility bills skyrocket, like many of us are privately and personally, but it's happening to us. We are an energy intensive charity. We use a lot of electricity to comply with all the food standard requirements to keep food safe. We run very large fridges and freezers. We have chilled lorries. We use a lot of energy. And also we have a staff team that's on board that we are wanting to look after and care for as their costs of living skyrocket as well. So we are seeing operationally and organisationally some of our costs climb through this period. And moving food around as well is also challenging. We work in a large geographic space, so we do spend a lot of money on fuel to move food around the counties. We're going to come to explain in a little bit what we're doing and what's next into some of our geographic positioning and placing, which will help with that. You'll have heard we're already tackling that with capital investment into our fleet of vehicles. So at this moment, a third of our vehicles that are on the forecourt today are electric. That will move to half of our vehicles within the next month will be electric-based vehicles. So we are working at that. But at the moment, running an electric vehicle, tragically, is more expensive than running a diesel vehicle at the moment. So trying to do the right thing, stick with our green passions and credentials and desire to really make a positive impact is actually costing us more than buying diesel vehicles at the moment or having a fleet of leased diesel vehicles. So we're paying that price. We're happy to pay that price because it's not about economics for us. It's about something far bigger than economics, but it is having a cost on our bottom line. And the other final challenge is the national resilience. There's a lot of how do I put this? There's a lot of challenge in that area to make sure that we have the right capacities in the right connection, working with the right partners to really maximize our impact. So how are we dealing with some of those? So those are the challenges, but kind of what's next, because we are determined not to just stand still and survive. I believe firmly that any organization that goes onto survival mode for more than a short window is heading in the direction that we do not want to be heading in. We know that the needs are out there. So we are looking at what we do in Surrey. As you can see from the slide that's in front of you now, there is need in Surrey. Similar data, similar statistics that we find in Sussex. They're quite similar counties demographically, known as areas where there isn't great need, but we know that under the bonnet of that county, like Sussex, there are areas of extreme deprivation that needs dealing with. And so you can see that illustrated there. We are already working with a number of charities that are already in situ there. You will be able to note, if we can jump to the next slide, you'll be able to note that we are working with 10 organisations through this last year who've received 86 tonnes of food from us, and we work that out on our basis of what we do with the weight of food, the cost of running the organisation. We know that that's the equivalent of over 200,000 meals we put into Surrey at the moment. The big challenge for us is limitation of not having a footprint in the county. So I was sitting over a very late lunch yesterday with two of our volunteers who'd spent the morning. They arrived back for a very late lunch at gone 3 o'clock, having been delivering into Surrey that morning to about 5 or 6 different projects that we work with. So we're looking at making investments to make that easier so we can reach and help more people in Surrey, but also so we can unlock food that's sitting in Surrey that's quite difficult to unlock when we're not based in that county with a footprint there. And also we want to reduce the food miles. We don't want to, again, have a green blind spot to what we do. We're determined to keep doing that. So we've got 2 investments that are going to be coming into the county in the next month or 2. We're that close to doing this now. The first is a production kitchen, which is a new program for us. It's even relatively new within the FareShare network nationally. We will be the 3rd production kitchen that comes online nationally out of the 32 centres. So you can see it's a relatively new part of what's happening. But what it allows us to do is to receive food into the network at the minute that we are struggling to receive large volumes of food around frozen, single item produces that we just haven't got the capacity to deal with. When you've got a production kitchen and you can turn that produce, you can add more life to the produce, you can turn that produce into something and then possibly chill it or even freeze it to add even more life onto that food. There is lots of new possibilities that are out there, as well as it being a new product for us to work with our community food members. So that's on its way, a production kitchen. The next thing that's on its way, a second premises, is a warehouse depot. And what that will allow us to do, the kitchen and the depot will work hand in hand. The depot allows us to receive those goods in that we can then slowly work into the production kitchen to turn into meals and work in that way. So the two things work absolutely hand in hand, but the warehouse will add a significant footprint to our ambient storage. It will more than double our fridge capacity, our chilled capacity, and it will add a 5-fold increase to our frozen capacity. One of the food areas that we know where there is a lot of availability within the food industry at the moment in surplus is frozen food. So we're really keen to be flexible and to adapt and to develop in that way within the network. It will allow us to take catering size packs, which are difficult to deal with for lots of the charities that we're working with at the moment. But you can see that the benefit in that with short-term dates, as I've already mentioned, and frozen products as well. So here's some of the ways that you can connect with us. I'm aware there's a lot of supporters on this webinar. We're thrilled that you've joined us, but if you are wondering, how do I connect? How can I make a difference? Well, the great news is you can, and some of the ways that you can make a difference are really simple. They're not grand gestures, they're not wallet busting gestures, they're not things that are going to require hours of your time, but here's some things that you could do that could really help us grow what we're doing to be able to get more of the surplus food away from waste and to maximize it with people that really need that food and where the social value is really put to its hardest use. The first thing is this: if you're someone who's in the social media world, then please do follow us, please do like us, please do let people know what we're doing. We're working really hard at that at the moment as an internal procedure, that we get better at sharing the story. We feel we have an amazing story to share, and we just need to really work at sharing that story, because we're taking something that's heading to be wasted and we're using it for real good, to work, to fight hunger, as we've said right at the front end, Caroline shared with you, but also to save that turning into CO2 waste. It doesn't need to when it's good to eat produce. So please share what we're doing. If you share what we're doing, it helps us connect with the people that we really need to connect with. The second thing is this, in a bit more direct way. Some of you will have industry connections with food. Some of you will have commercial connections with organizations and companies that are interested in working with local or regional charities, and we can work locally. We work across 3 counties regionally where people can get involved. So if you know someone within those sectors that can really benefit from working with us and there's a mutuality to that, then please help connect us with people. And then the third thing is this: help us collect food. We're aware even of some of our commercial partners that don't work within the food industry. Having a small collection point in your office, even just on that small level, it helps connect your business to the cause. It helps connect your staff to the cause. It helps bring a sense of well-being to them as they connect with others beyond the immediacy of the work environment. And it genuinely really does make a difference. We've got, I think it's about 5 or 6 new collection points that have gone into businesses in this last 6 months, and we really are benefiting from those. So it's a really simple step. We will provide the basket. We will send our army of volunteers out to connect it at the frequency that works with you. And it's just something that really adds value within your workplace, we're finding with the corporate partners that we're working with. So enough from me for right now. I'm going to hand back to my esteemed colleague Claire, who's going to facilitate some questions. If you haven't stuck any questions in the chat, you can use that mechanism, but Claire will move us through now and how we're going to field questions if there are any out there. Claire, over to you.
Hiya. So thank you, Dan and Caroline. That was really brilliant. So if you have got a question, you can use your hand up button and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question. If you prefer not to speak, then please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. And I'm hoping we might have some questions. If not, we've done an amazing job. I'm not seeing anyone. No. So if nobody has any questions, that's fine. You can please get in contact with us via email, or you can give us a call. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. We will be emailing out details of our open days. I think we have 3 in the diary. We'd love for you to come along to our depot. We'd give you a tour. You can find out much more about what we're up to and the work that we do. So as Dan said, in the meantime, please do follow us on social media so you can keep up to date with our work. Thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely.